My name is Sue Wood, and I am a Women's Health Ambassador for the St. Francis Gala. I am 76 years old, and I really feel like I've always taken care of my health. I never missed mammograms or pap smears when I was of the age to do those. And I've also coupled that with exercise over the years. And I have to, first of all, credit the PE teachers in Fort Dodge, Iowa for getting me to exercise, because we wrote a grant for some equipment for their gyms in Fort Dodge, and as we were doing that, we got really close, and they said to me, do you exercise? And I'm like, well, not really. And so one of the pieces of equipment that we installed in their gyms were climbing walls. So after we got those all installed, they said, okay, let's see if you can do this climbing wall. And of course, as a school administrator, I had on heels and all of that, but they made me try this climbing wall, and it was fun. And so from then on, I was exercising a lot. And then a really fun thing after I got here to Maryville, one of my friends, Dr. Nancy Foley, was turning 70. And she wanted to do something for her 70th birthday that involved exercise. So she had a personal trainer, and her personal trainer said, well, why don't you consider doing some 5Ks? And she said, oh, well, let me think about that. She said, if I do 14 5Ks, that would be 70K for 70 years. So she started this whole thing of 70K for 70 years, and 3 of us joined her, and we have now done her 70K for 70 years. We did my 70K for 70 years, and then our other 2 friends as well. And at the end of the 70K, we always go someplace fun for our last one. We went to New York City, we went to Memphis, we went to Colorado. We've been just all kinds of different places for these. So that has been really, really fun, and we have continued to do that. I finished my 75 one, which was 15 5Ks for 75 years, and now I'm working on 80K for 80 years. So that's my next goal, is that by the time I turn 80, I will have done 80K. So that's the goal. We'll see if we make it, but we're sure trying to. So this year was an interesting year. I've always been very, very healthy. I've never had any health issues. And like I said, I always do mammograms, and up until the age where I didn't have to do pap tests anymore, I always did my pap tests. Well, this year, there was a morning where I woke up, and I had some bleeding, which was abnormal. It was vaginal bleeding. And so I thought, wow, I wonder what that is. And of course, your first thinking is, oh, it's nothing. I'm just not going to worry about it. But then I started thinking, you know what? It's been 20 years since I've had menopause, and so this is probably not normal. So I did what you probably aren't supposed to do, which is consult the internet to see what they say about these conditions. And I'm glad I did this time, because the website that I went to said that if this happens, you need to contact your doctor immediately. So my first thought was, well, I'll wait and see what happens tomorrow. And then as the day progressed, I thought, nope, I think I'd better contact the doctor immediately. So I called the clinic to get an appointment with my doctor, and they said, what's going on? And I told them what had happened, and there was a pause on the phone, and I was on hold for just a little bit. And I really thought I was going to get an appointment like next week, but no, they got me in the very next day. And so I had an appointment with Dr. Spoileter, and she examined me, and she said, you know, a lot of the times this is nothing, but she said, I really want to do an ultrasound to see what's going on. So we did an ultrasound like in the next day or two, and as we did the ultrasound, there was a thickening of the uterine walls, and she said at that point, you know, still this may not be anything, but let's see if we should do another test. So she called Dr. Dodson, and Dr. Dodson recommended a hysteroscopy, and we did that on September 18th of this year. And so from the time I noticed the bleeding until I had this procedure, it was like 2 weeks. I mean, it was just that fast that everything happened. And so we had that, and Dr. Dodson looked at it, and she said, you know, just physically, it looks like there's nothing really to be concerned about. But she said, we absolutely can't know anything until we get the labs back. So on September 19th, I'm sitting in the Hy-Vee parking lot because I had just gotten groceries, and I opened up my phone and it said, "You have a new report on your chart." And so I thought, okay, well, I know what's going to say. It's fine. So I'll wait till I get home. Got home, got the groceries put away, and then I opened up my chart and it said endometrial carcinoma. And I am no medical professional, but I do know the word carcinoma, and that's not a word that I really wanted to see on my chart. So I immediately called my daughter, who lives around the corner from me, and I said, "Jill," I said, "this is what my chart said." And she said, "Oh, well," she said, "let me get my head wrapped around this just for a second, and then I'll be up." So 5 minutes passed, and she was up, and she said, "You've had better days." And I said, "Yeah, I really have." And she said, "Well, let's get to hold of your doctor immediately." So called out to the clinic for Dr. Dodson, and she was gone, but they said that she would check her messages, and so I asked if she would call me. It wasn't 5 minutes after I hung up the phone that Dr. Lynch called me, and he was wonderful, and he was helping out Dr. Dodson as she was at a medical convention, and just so kind. And he said, "This is a scary report," he said, because the report said that there were cancer cells that were grade 2 and 3, and that there was a serous component. And I had looked to see what that meant, and that was kind of scary because that's an aggressive kind of cancer. But he said, "Don't worry about it yet." He said, "We're going to schedule you for a complete hysterectomy. First thing we're going to do is call Advent Health in Kansas City and get you set up for an appointment." So, but then I love to travel, and I had a trip scheduled to leave on Sunday, and this was Friday, and I was going to be gone 5 days. And I said, "Is it okay for me to go on this trip?" And he said, "You probably can't get into Advent before that anyway." He said, "If you feel good, just go and have a great time." So I did, and got back. While I was on my trip, Advent called me and scheduled an appointment for the day after I got home from my trip. So everything just, everybody was so concerned and so wonderful about making sure I got the care that I needed. So I went to Advent Health on October 4th, and I got into the examination room, and the door opened, the doctor walked in, and she was phenomenal. The first thing she did, she looked at me and she said, "I am so sorry you're having to go through this." I mean, just so caring. And like I said earlier, every single person on my journey through this was like that. But she knew I was scared half to death. She just was so kind and caring. And she went through every single piece of the report that I had gotten and said, yes, we were going to do a complete hysterectomy on October 18th. So we did. And after the hysterectomy, which went very, very well, and I mean, didn't have any problems at all. I was really walking probably for 2 days afterwards. I walked down to my daughter's house because they said to walk, so I like to walk, so I did. And the hardest part after the hysterectomy was waiting for what the lab said. And about 10 days after, I got the report, and it said, no cancer in the fallopian tubes, no cancer in the ovaries, no cancer in the lymph nodes, no cancer anywhere. And that was unbelievable and so exciting. So I called my daughter Jill right away and I said, listen to this report. And she said, oh, that's just perfect. But she said, be cautiously optimistic because you have to visit with the doctor to make sure that that report is as good as we think it is. So went back to the doctor on October 31st, and the doctor walks in the room and she says, you're going to like this. And she confirmed that there was no cancer anywhere that they found, and that I didn't have to, at that point, have any chemotherapy or any radiation. But she said, you're not finished with me. You have to come back in 3 months. So now the treatment is to go back every 3 months this first year and see, So, I mean, at all that I do think, the reason why it turned out beautifully was that, I mean, the minute I found out or I saw that I had this abnormal bleeding, I went to the doctor. And I think oftentimes as women, we don't, because we think we may not have time to do that. Or when you're a woman my age, you think, oh, I've been through these things before. It's going to be fine. I'll just wait a couple days. Well, if I would have waited a couple days, then I don't believe I would have had the outcome that I had. Because there was only one day where I really noticed the abnormality, and that was the day when I called the doctor. If I'd have waited till the next day, I'd have said, oh, it went away. I'm good. I'm fine. But instead, the doctors all along the way knew that we needed to take a look at things more completely, and we did. And so that, coupled with a community and a church family that said prayer after prayer after prayer after prayer for me, I believe that's why the outcome was so good. But I kind of think it's like when you go to the airport and they say, if you see something, say something. Well, I kind of think you should do that with your health too. If you see something that's abnormal or feel something that's abnormal, say something or do something. So when Megan called me to ask if I would be an ambassador, my first thought was, well, my story is such a good story because it came out so well. I don't really know what I have to tell. And then she reminded me that the purpose of all of this always is to remind people of how important it is to take your health seriously, how important it is to go to the doctor if you find something that's not right. And so even though, thank God, my journey turned out beautifully, I just want everybody to know, and I said yes to being an ambassador, so that I could encourage everyone, number one, to take care of your health all through your life, so that when you get to my age and you have a complication like this, you know that you've been healthy all the rest of the time. And just don't be afraid to go to the doctors, especially here in Maryville, because they are wonderful, and they refer you to wonderful places like Advent Health, who couldn't have been any better. So I want that to be the message that carries forth as I am an ambassador. Just take care of yourself, and if you see something, say something.